Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Nisha. Good evening, Saira. So we are back with this day 8 of Civil's Daily Initiative of Daily Answer Wars and Daily Answer Wars Prime. So again, in the morning, we had given you a question, a PYQ basically related to GS2, and we will be discussing that question in this session, and we'll also be looking at some of the copies that you have submitted in the Telegram group before 2 p.m. So starting with the question was basically related to National Commission for Backward Classes. Now, if you remember last year around this time, it was pretty much in news, and uh, this commission was recently given the constitutional status. So the question was around that only. So we will start the discussion in detail, like what all we could have written in the answer and what was the question exactly. So the question was discuss the role of the National Commission for Backward Classes in the wake of its transformation from a statutory body to a constitutional body. So this statutory body was established long way back in 1993, I suppose. But the constitutional status was given through the 102nd Constitutional Amendment Act in 2018. So there were certain changes whenever a body goes from statutory body to constitutional body. Certain changes take place. So we had to just shed light on what all changes take place during that, and the context was this status given to the NCBC. So National CBC faces, but those were not the necessary parts. What necessarily what you had to mention was the role of NCBC as a constitutional body, and what are the benefits that NCBC gets from being transformed from a statutory body to a constitutional body. If you have mentioned these two portions, I think this should be sufficient for this answer. So starting with the introduction of the answer, the introduction is very basic. I have started with like the 102nd Constitutional Amendment Act. So the NCBC, which was a statutory body constituted in 1993, was given constitutional status by 102nd Constitutional Amendment through insertion of Articles 338B and Article 342A in the Constitution. So you had to mention these articles for some creating some greater impact on the examiner, and also to include some data in your introduction. So therefore, I have mentioned these articles 338B and Article 342A. So basically, we will be discussing these two articles a bit in detail also, because uh, these are the changes that the constitutional amendment made into the constitution. So we have to analyze a bit about this. So I have just talked about both the articles in a separate subsection. 102nd Constitutional Amendment Act, basically Article 338B provides authority to NCBC to examine complaints and welfare measures regarding social and educationally backward classes. So basically NCBC can examine all the complaints and whatever welfare it can take regarding especially to OBCs. That power was given to NCBC with the Article 338B. And the next article, that is 342A, it empowers the president basically to specify socially and educationally backward classes in various states and union territories. So there is a list that is prepared for who all are eligible to be counted as SEBCs, or socially and educationally backward class. So this article basically empowers the president to specify that list, and he can do so in consultation with the governor of that concerned state for each particular state. So basically, these two articles needed to be mentioned, and some of the provisions of these articles needed to be mentioned. After that, we go on to talk about the role of NCBC as a constitutional body. So most of the roles are similar. Before also, when NCBC was a statutory body, some of these functions were performed by NCBC. But whatever changes and what all extra roles the constitutional status gave to NCBC, you needed to mention it in a bit of detail, because the question was asking about the transformation from a statutory body to a constitutional body. So when we go on talking about the role of NCBC, the protection of constitutional safeguards. So first and foremost, that it is that the constitutional safeguards awarded to SEBCs or the OBCs, or you can say the socially and educationally backward classes. NCBC has the primary role of protecting those safeguards, looking into it that all those safeguards are properly applied to this section of the society. So it has the authority to examine, monitor, and evaluate the implementation of constitutional provisions for the socially and educationally disadvantaged. Next, we can talk about the socio-economic development, and not only about safeguard, it also goes a step further and talks about the development of this class. So it engages in and advises on the SEBC socio-economic growth as well as evaluating their progress. Next is about inquiry into complaints. So whenever there are specific complaints or even suo moto, NCBC can inquire into these complaints with respect to the deprivation of rights and safeguards of the socially and educationally backward classes. Next is about power of a civil court. So NCBC has also been awarded with the power of a civil court while trying a suit, and can someone anyone require documents to be produced and receive evidence on affidavit. All of these things you will get in like any basic question in basic book on polity or which talks about constitutional bodies. So I think these points were pretty generic, and you must have written this because basically the question was asking about this thing only, like what transformation or what is the role of NCBC after it has got the constitutional status. So next we move on to grievance redressal. So the new NCBC is also interested with the additional function of grievance redress of backward classes. Next is about presenting reports to the president. So I think all of you know that the body needs to present its reports annually, or even at such times when the commission deems it fit to the president on its upon its working and functioning of the safeguards that are given in the constitution. Some other functions are also there which can be mentioned, that it has to perform such other functions related to protection, welfare and development and advancement of SEBCs as the president may by rule specify, which is subject to the provision of any parliamentary law. So these are the major functions. However, I will say that you need not mention all of these like in toto. Even if you can mention the gist or like 4 or 5 major points, I think that should be enough for this answer for the role of NCBC. Just ensure to mention like these points. For example, constitutional safeguards, socio-economic development, inquiry into complaints, civil court, and grievance redressal. So these 5 points were, I'll say, pretty much necessary to mention. If you have mentioned this, I think that should be enough for this subsection. Next, we move to a part called benefits of awarding the constitutional status. So the question is asking about the transformation from statutory to constitutional body. So we need to give some account of what all advantages has been there to the NCBC since it has got the constitutional status. Like what all benefits are there for awarding a body constitutional status? Why not continue it as a statutory body? So constitutional status, first of all, basically increases this justice aspect. So justice to backward classes. It helps in addressing the concerns of the backward class and brings social equity in the society. Also, the status of the NCBC is increased. Earlier, this NCST and the NCSC and the NCST were given the constitutional status. That is the National Commission for Scheduled Caste and National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. So NCBC getting constitutional status brings it on par with these bodies. Next is also about democratic functioning. So whenever we give constitutional status to some body, so there is a underlined procedures for appointments and removals. So that makes the body more democratic. So the addition of at least 2 people with special understanding of backward classes and 1 woman to NCBC is a positive step towards making the commission more democratic and effective in advancing the interests of SEBCs. Next is also about transparency. Now 342A, although it makes like the president the one who can uh, publish list for SEBCs from a particular state on the consultation of the governor, but it also provides a provision for the concurrence of parliament. So Article 342A makes it mandatory to take the concurrence of parliament for adding or deleting any community in the backward list. So once when the list is published, after that, if you need to make any changes in the list, for example, adding some community or deleting from the CBC list, this concurrence of the parliament is necessary. So that adds to the transparency of the functioning of the commission. So you could have mentioned these benefits. So after that, you can just, if you have still space and word limit is still there with you, you can just mention some of the challenges that the constitution faced. For example, allegations of bias and again, not performing its job to the full, vacancies in the appointments. All of this can be mentioned in 2 or 3 points. But I will suggest that if you have enough content, you need not mention this because they are not asking specifically about the challenges that the NCBC faces. It is just basically talking about discussing the role of NCBC. The role is more or less covered when you are writing these 2 sections. Next, you could just conclude giving a futuristic orientation to this NCBC. While giving NCBC constitutional status is a step in the right direction, some other measures can also be done. Just giving the NCBC constitutional status does not mean that the OBC class has been now elevated to a very good position. So you need to mention that some all other steps such as subcategorization of OBCs. For example, there are different types of OBCs. You must know about the creamy layer, non-creamy layer concept. So those things can be done, like better subcategorization of OBCs, political will for proper representation, and all of this ensuring comprehensive and holistic development of the OBC. So this is a basic way forward and futuristic looking conclusion. I have tried to integrate the way forward in the conclusion itself so that I can include all my points in the limited word limit and the space that is given to me during the examination. So I think this was the very basic framework of the answer. So basically, two sections you needed to mention. The first being the constitutional amendment, what is the basically role of NCBC, and next part you had to mention some of the benefits of awarding constitutional status to NCBC. What difference does it make from the earlier position of statutory body? So if you have written these two parts, I think it was good enough for getting some decent marks. So now we'll move on to checking some of the copies that you have submitted before 2 p.m. Good evening, Rishabh. Good evening, Prathamesh. Samiran, good evening. Harji, good evening. So we'll start with Ritu's copy. Uh, Let us see what he has written. Earlier, Backward Class Commission, as per Article 340, was appointed under Kalilkar and BP Mandal, but later it was made a constitutional body under 338 by 1. Okay, fine. Transformation in role from statutory body to a constitutional body. Monitoring, safeguard, providing for socially and educational backward classes, similar all functions as statutory body with added role. Urges government to carry out OBC count in census, discharge for, functions for protection, welfare, development, and constitutional advancement of SCBC for 155th Amendment Act for Pan India list of OBCs. Okay, statutory annual report, formation of schemes, etc. Power of civil court. So next is about however, even after giving constitutional status to NCBC, it still faces certain issues: irregulatory appointment, advisory, and recommendatory nature, lacking funding mechanism. Okay, politicizing, centralizing tendency of NCBCs. Ajgar community reservation, Jat and Maratha agitation for vote bank politics. Okay, way forward capitalizing approach for giving more teeth to NCBCs, autonomy in funding, binding nature of advice like election commission, exit clause and reservation. Okay, autonomy in functioning is the topmost position of any organization body. Therefore, reforms is must to uphold the sanctity of constitutional status of NCBC to deserve complete justice, deliver complete justice to SCBC citizens in India. I think very good answer content-wise he has written, but you can see that in initial parts he has gone on in a bit of detail. For example, introduction is written quite clearly, and this part also she has made a table, so presentation wise it is fine. But in this last part, a lot of content is adjusted into some part which is not even like prominent enough. So you can avoid this, Ritu. You can just go on for writing broad way forward. No need to include everything in your answer. Whatever you know is not required, and moreover, this question is not asking about justice to OBCs or elevating the status or what all deficiencies we have. So you can just write these parts, for example, challenges and way forward in a pretty more presentable manner. Like you can just shorten some of the points or avoid some of the points. For example, you can remove this exit clause in reservation, or you can talk about binding nature of advice like election commission. You can remove these points, go on for just writing 2 and 3 points, but try to ensure that you are writing it clearly so that the examiner reads your points and gives some extra marks for the effort you have put in. Otherwise, it is fine. I won't say that this answer is lacking in content and all, because everything is written almost. Conclusion can be a bit short, like when you are specifically writing a way forward, you can just end it with what you have written in the answer, just summarize it in the conclusion, and I think that should be enough. But still, overall, very good answer, and I think you will get 5 out of 10 for this answer, Ritu. Next, we move to Ranu's copy. National Commission for Backward Classes established a constitutional mechanism for welfare has been accorded with constitutional status in place of previously statutory status. So I think just improve the framing of this sentence, the first sentence. It seems a bit haphazard, like National Commission for Backward Classes established a constitutional mechanism for welfare, and here after that this has been accorded is grammatically a bit incorrect. So try to write small short sentences. There is no need to write this constitutional mechanism for welfare. You can just mention that NCBC has been accorded with constitutional status in place of a previously awarded statutory status, and that should be enough. Inclusion and exclusion of caste to list of backward classes will have parliamentary intervention. Okay, so here you what you can do is just mention articles 338 and 342. So both those articles will add to your answer rather than mentioning this Kaka Kalilkar and Mandal case judgment. More important. Okay, so here you have mentioned. So you can just shorten up your introduction a bit. It is so long, like this 338A and 342A should come in your first paragraph. Within the first 2 lines of your answer, these articles should be mentioned. So has been inserted of the socially and personally backward class in constitution. The commission ceased to be statutory. So for example, here you see you are again repeating the same thing. Statutory body became a constitutional body. You have written this already in the first line. So no need to repeat it. Just let the answer be organic. So whenever you are writing one statement, back it up with your facts and leave it at that. After that, don't go on repeating the same thing because it makes the answer very repetitive in nature. Like examiner will lose interest if you keep on repeating the same points. The role of NCBC is investigate and monitor matters. Okay, participate and advise, mediate it. Okay, discharge such other functions. The power of civil court. Okay, so here you have missed, I think, about grievance redressal. So you can write that point also. Differences is also good. So you have shown the differences from the previous statutory body. Transfer of power is okay. No discretion of government. Autonomy in various matters. Provision for development of SCB. Grievance redressal for BC. Okay. So similar thing. Rather than differences, I have framed it as benefits that constitutional status gives. So you can just add one or two more points. Otherwise, I think the structuring of your answer is decent enough. Giving constitutional recognition to the NCBC is a forward step for the welfare of the SCBCs. It has led to the usurpation of the power by the center to classify, okay, vote bank politics should give it, value-based politics, okay, fine. So conclusion is also decent, but again, I'll say that it is a bit too long, so you can just shorten it a bit. Both introduction and conclusion in this answer can be shortened, and in the body also you can add some points in both the parts that you have written. For example, in the role and in the benefits that the constitutional status gives for NCBC. Both these parts you can add some points. Otherwise, the answer structuring of the answer is pretty good. So overall, you will get 4 out of 10 for this answer run. Next, we move to Unnati's copy. Statutory body to let us discuss. Okay, initially NCBC was a statutory body established under National Commission. Okay, once again, okay, fine. Initial power. So here you can just mention the article numbers 338A and 342A. So that will add a bit to your introduction. Initial power is statutory body and get and monitor all matters. Okay, participate and advise, fine. So again, you have followed the same approach as Ritu, I guess. After this, let us see. After okay, so additional function prevents redressal. Article 342A into greater transparency. So okay, development and advancement of each community towards equality. So this is fine. Again, challenges. So what instead of challenges, you can just give an analysis or benefits of what this constitutional status has done to NCBC. For example, what you have mentioned is all factual points like what exactly the constitutional status has meant for NCBC, like Article 342A and socio-economic development and function of grievance redressal. So these are points mentioned in the amendment or in the constitutional uh, act. But after that, you can just mention some of the benefits that constitutional body gives to any statutory body. What are the benefits of a body being a constitutional body that you can mention in place of challenges? Because the question is more about this role as a constitutional body. After that, if you get some space, you can mention these challenges, no issues. Also, way forward can again be mentioned after that if you get some space. But I will say avoid it because I think you have crossed the word limit. Written more than 3 pages for a 10 marker, and I think you won't get so much space in the exam hall. The composition should reflect the feature. Okay, fine. The government must vote bank politics. Okay, so you can just use the keywords. For example, you can just mention that avoiding vote bank politics, or mention that the reflecting the feature of expert bodies as mandated by SC, and you can just mention the keywords in your conclusion to make the way forward integrated with your conclusion. That will do two things. That will also avoid the need of writing a separate way forward in such an answer where you are short on space and words, and also that will provide a conclusion to your answer. So two things will be done in one conclusion itself, and you can just mention the benefits also. So I think overall you will get 3.5 out of 10 for this answer, Unnati, just because you have written some irrelevant things and given too much space to that, and also you have crossed the word limit a bit. So talk more about the benefits of a constitutional body rather than talking about challenges and way forward. Next, we move to Manujansu's copy. National Commission for Backward Classes ceased to be statutory body. Okay, fine. Plus, role of NCBC continue investigating monitor all matters. Okay. Specific complaints earlier. Okay. Participate and advise on socio-economic. Okay, fine. So have you mentioned the article numbers? Okay, under article. So okay, 342A can also be mentioned here. So that is important. I will say. On to considering conclusion. Okay, present annual report to the president. Make a recommendation. Are all fine. Play a significant role in safeguarding the few limitations, non-binding nature of recommendation. So okay, so both these challenges and like this conclusion is good for mere conferring constitutional status would not solve problems. This is a very good conclusion, But what I will say is, again, you have missed that section on benefits, because this is basically what all is mentioned in the act or in the constitution itself, benefits. So that should be it for this answer. And otherwise, the points that you have written are more or less good, like your decent points. And I think content wise, this answer is not lacking anything as such. Uh, so that should be it for today, guys. I think I have discussed some of the copies and also discussed the framework for the question that was given. And again, we'll meet tomorrow with a new PYQ or a new question, whichever be the case. In the morning, I'll post the question in the Telegram group, and again in the evening, we will discuss it over this YouTube live session. So that will be it for today, guys. And also try to participate in the night owl discussion so that your current affairs also gets on boosted through this process. And I will be I will be like posting some of the good copies in the group in some time. So try to ensure it is not necessary that all the good copies or all the answers are perfect in every aspect. You just need to pick the points that are good in those good copies and add it to your word notes. For example, there can be a copy in which the introduction is pretty good. So what you need to do is that you need to put that introduction or points in that introduction in your notes so that you can be better at writing introduction when you write a next set of your answers. Or in some answer, the body or content might be very good. So there might be specific things in each answer that might be good. So you need to be a bit smart about choosing things from that good copies, which I will post in the group. So that will be it for today, guys. Thank you very much. And again, we will meet tomorrow with a new question, and we will continue discussion on this answer writing process. So Sweta sir, based on Ritu's answer, is it okay to draw line as we aren't differentiating between statutory and constitutional as many functions have continued? Yeah, you can do it, Sweta. That is not an issue. Like most of the functions are same, like statutory. Uh, some extra functions are there, and in Ritu's answers, he has mentioned those constitutional function, extra functions. So you can do that. But overall, if you just mention the role of NCBC as a constitutional body, that should be enough. And to differentiate between statutory and constitutional, I'll advise you to write some benefits of a constitutional body over a statutory body in the next subsection. So that should be good enough for your answer. So thank you very much, guys. Again, we'll meet tomorrow.